Alright, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. I got a Ficus Peterisii here. I'm going to update this one and then work on a couple more. This is a root over skull. It's a cat skull. Before anybody thinks I did anything horrible, it was leftover remnants of a osprey's dinner that got left in my yard. And after I got it all cleaned up, I just kind of salvaged the skull and was able to make something of it. I haven't updated you guys on this since January. I think it looked a lot better then. I pruned it hard, and for some reason it just took forever to recover. Kept getting new leaves, kind of looking as if they were burning up, which was kind of strange to happen in January and February. And so eventually I wound up taking this wire off, and then of course it shot straight up and started growing like crazy. And so a few months ago I went ahead and got the wire back on it and pruned it again, and then it took forever to recover again. But now here we are. Back in January, all that algae was not on there either. And I think this crack in the skull is new. This one too. Part of me actually likes to think I'd like to maybe like almost slip pot it, like rest it right on top of just a little bit of a wider all the way around pot, and take and just already have the substrate in there and rest it right on top. But I also think it's still not the healthiest thing in the world, so I think I'll just leave it be. A couple of weeds there. Alright, and then there's this one. This is a root over a rock that I started from cutting. I will put this in the playlist. You can go back and watch the old videos if you want. I actually cut this one back hard in February, but I noticed the same thing was happening with the skull, and you know, all these new leaves were coming out and kind of getting burned up right away. And I wound up putting this one in the shade. I took the wire off and put it in the shade, and then, you know, it started to recover, and just for some reason I never kind of moved it back out. You can see here I had it in a lower spot that I don't really check up all that much, and it got a little overtaken by weeds. First thing I'll do is get all those out. Got the 3 weeds that grow the most commonly in my yard. Actually, I guess that's called spurge. Make sure and got that. This comes back. I think that might actually even be a weedy version of shrimp plant. There's some shrimp plants that, you know, are sold, and I guess when they bloom, the hummingbirds like them. But then there's also a weedy kind of variety of them. Grows in the shade around here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to see, it's got 2 branches, a bit of a knob there. This one is really straight, kind of hanging off the edge here of the rock, or not the edge of the rock, but the edge of the pot and just the whole kind of area of the tree, if you will. This one kind of comes a little bit better over this way, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this one off and try to go ahead and just get some movement and have that, you know, kind of have the movement that way and then back this way. All right, because of the positioning of it, I should be able to just take the knob cutters and take it off right there. And then you can see that it is a bit of a place that if I let both of them go, probably would have got some inverse taper there eventually. Just going to disturb that. See the live cambium all around there. Thought there was a lot more dead to it. Alright, and since I cut the straight peat off, I was going to, I thought that there was a lot more dead wood in that knob, and I was going to try to hollow it out a little bit and see if I couldn't wrap the live wood around it. But I got to live just as soon as I even opened up as soon as I took off that other piece, it was right down to live wood. And there wasn't any dead in that knob that was any deeper than like maybe a ½ centimeter or something. So I decided against that plan. I thought it would be best maybe if you just didn't mention that shit at all. But I'm going to go ahead, and since it's coming over the rock this way some, and then I cut off the straight piece, that's plenty of movement there. And this, what I'm going to do is just kind of take it back up around like this. I am going to simplify. I'm going to leave the growing tips. I'm going to leave, but I'm going to simplify it just a little bit and take this one off. That one's already kind of going that way. I'll leave these growing tips in there, as those are branches I'm going to try to keep. And see how this turns out here. Go ahead and take this piece off so it doesn't suddenly try to become a new apex or anything. If you see, I tried to stay pretty tight down here, and then I got really loose. I think one of the things I found out is these Peterisii, they'll stay pretty flexible as it thickens up, even gets thicker than a pinky. It'll stay pretty flexible, but it really doesn't like having the really small branches wired. And the idea is I just want to bring that back over, and then get this in a spot here. Where I can go ahead and reach for the sun some. I was thinking about trying to clean the rock up some, but if you notice, I don't have any moss on any of my trees. I actually kind of don't like it, even though when I first got into the hobby, I remember I was collecting a bunch up from where my air conditioning drips and trying to get it on all my trees. I find when I put them out in full sun, it just kind of takes it out. But by me leaving this one kind of weedy and everything, I see that it is kind of growing actually some decent looking moss and not just algae. So I may put this back in the shade where it was and see, I don't know, see if I can get some moss growing. It looks like a couple of roots are starting to pop out there a little bit. Got a little piece of wire on that wound I made. Hopefully it starts cutting in as it starts growing some. Alright, and then this is the last one I'm going to look at. It's the little cutting, little tiny cactus pot. You can see I've had some wire on it at some point. I have reason to believe it's been in here for 2.5 years. Not really sure what my ideas were there of keeping it constricted for so long. But it has, achieved some decent thickness. And I'll get in here and see what it looks like. Get it in a slightly bigger training pot. I'm gonna have to edit all that out. This seems like this species will only get one kind of big tuber root, and then actually there's nothing there. That's actually where the original cutting was. It got one root coming out of it, nothing flared out of that side. I'm gonna cut it like half the tube off, and then when I plant it, I'm gonna plant it right up to where that base was kind of starting there, in the hopes that that'll continue to thicken up some. Here's the training pot I'm using. All good soil in there. Alright, and even though it is just a training pot, it does seem a lot more at home and proportionate in it than it did in that little tiny round pot. I figured a little bit later on in the fall, when I notice new growth coming in, I'll also notice trying to straighten itself out. And I'll get some more wire on there, just trying to, maintain the movement it's got.